What are we going to talk about?
So you're talking about
A guy?
a client of yours.
Oh, okay. I'll go into it. He, like just about every other client who comes to me, is kind of depressed or certainly in a psychological quandary of some kind. He definitely is depressed. He describes his life as just a series of folly, and now, as he's gotten older, he's actually about 80 or 81 years old, and he feels terrifically vulnerable, and a life full of small setbacks, things that are not life-threatening by any stretch, but they disturb him. They're like big rocks thrown into the water. They cause a great deal more anxiety and worry, and he realizes that what's happening to him is he's going back to his childhood, where all of that anxiety and worry was imposed upon him through a very bad upbringing, where he was terrorized and made to feel insignificant because of always being always being judged and condemned and punished as a result of it. And there are various forms of punishment, many of them physical, but there's more than that. What happens with a child like that is there's a sense of distrust and separation from the most fundamental of all the beings in your life, your parents. And when that happens, that becomes I call it the foundation for your attitude about a number of things, including religion, including the idea of God and all that. It'll have an influence on the kind of God that you have, things like that. And even Eric Fromm pointed it out. He said the relationship a man has to his father is going to influence his vision of God. Sure. And all that's all very well. It's just too bad that some people who talk about these things pretend that they're objective, which is very funny. There's a comedian who makes lots of money, a political comedian, who talks about this thing as if he really knows something. And he's just bouncing on the surface of things. They'll say things like, religion causes the wars. Oh my God. No. If there were no religion, humans would kill each other over who the better teams are in baseball, or the color of your hair, or the color of your skin.
Or something else would become a religion.
Absolutely. I mean, there will always be some. There are religions. If you look around, the religion of this country is usually found more concentrated on a Sunday afternoon. People watching the NFL, that's much stronger religion. I mean, it was always obvious that, a lot of so-called Christians would not want Jesus in the foxhole with them unless he's going to save them. And they don't want a Jesus in the foxhole. They want somebody who's going to be a terror and defend them. So the value system of people is profoundly influential in the way they look at the perennial questions about their relationship to existence, to God, to the end of life. And so here's this guy, and he says his life is such a wreck, and he has no sense of control over it, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And he says he has no recourse to any other solution. Nothing is really going to help him. He said, I've come to you not for strategies or anything like that, because it's always going to eventuate in the same end for him. No matter how he twists and turns, no matter how many existential decisions he makes, he will eventually wind up in the same unhappy place. And he's come to realize that. And so he says there's no wisdom that's going to somehow correct this. All I am is a mechanism, and no matter how much I see it and I watch it operating, I can barely have any influence over it. And the only thing I can do, he said, sometimes is to abstain from something. But there's no proper choice in terms of getting a higher pleasure or something like that. If somebody offers him a drink, a whiskey or something like that, he says, no, thank you, because he realizes that it would be good only for a short time, and then the rest would not be good. It would have a bad effect on him. And therefore, he understands about so many things in life. Existential decisions can make you feel as if you have control over life, and give you that delusion, but they're not going to save you from the inevitable thing that scares the hell out of you, and that is death. We are creatures who are aware somehow of death. Every vulnerability carries a fear of death in it. I would contest that if people felt no fear, if they realized that they were perfectly immortal, then nothing could kill them, that pain would not be as severe. Pain carries something with it. It carries more than just its immediate sensate experience. I'm going to make that claim. I'm going to say that there's an existential element, a psychological carrier, something that's humped on the back of the pain, and it's like, this could get multiply, or this could get worse, or this could become an eternity, or maybe I just come to an end. Maybe I want to give up this being that I am. And people sometimes realize they hold on to their being, and this guy does. That's what he says. He feels like he's holding on to his being. And so he said, I need help. And I said, well, how can I help you? So he says, I want you to show me a way, not a strategy, but I want you to help me to relate to the infinite. I want to relate to that which is beyond the fear, beyond care. I want to get to that. I want to have a relationship with that one. I said, you're talking about God. He said, I don't even want to call it God. He's a very sophisticated guy. He's had some background in various in-depth studies. And so he understands himself psychologically and understands about the limitations that we use when we use a word like God, which is so meaningless for so many people, it actually carries negative connotation. So he said, I don't want to call it God, but I want to call it that the foundation of my consciousness, or all consciousness, that is somehow beyond the fear. I want to go to what Heidegger called the authentic, he said, that which is beyond care. And that's because the authentic realizes not who it is, because there is no who, but what it is. And what it is just a consciousness. And now, that's almost impossible for people to understand, because we always think of consciousness as being somehow embedded in the brain of the individual, but the subatomic physicists don't look at it that way. They say consciousness is the entire field, and that somehow we participate in that field through the structures of our brain.
As if the brain is an antenna.
Exactly. It's a receiver. And we know that that's, spoken of openly by a number of the highest subatomic physicists. And it's very fine. And so he says, how in the world can I talk to that which is at the foundation of this? And I don't know what else to tell him except that don't talk to the God above the clouds. Don't talk to that. I watch all the baseball players after they've hit a home run. They come in and they always thank God to the sky. And it's all very nice and all that. And it probably puts them in a good light by a lot of people who see that there's a reverence and a humility. And I like that.
Right.
But he's not only up there, or it is not only up there. It's in your feet. It's in the ground. It's the foundation of your life. And so I told him, talk to that. It might help you a little bit. And
more feet on the ground, less head in the clouds.
That's a good way to put it. You just became a Zen master for a moment.
Yeah.
Well, there's a Zen master who claims that we have many Satori moments in the course of a day. I know that I've had a few in my life. I talked about it in some of my writing. There was a very dramatic one. Remember when Krishnamurti said, if you found yourself in a room and suddenly you realize there's a cobra in the corner, how awake you would become, how undistracted you would become, right? Pure Zen. And I was nearly in a car accident where I woke up. I was not driving. I told this story. Do you think I should speak it to the...
Yeah, there's a reference to another video. The previous one that we posted.
Yeah, it was a very, it was a very highly objective...
position.
No, state of consciousness.
Right.
It was a moment of clarity and survival-oriented practicality, knowing exactly what should be done and not to be done.
Uninterrupted moment-to-moment awareness.
Well, it all was one moment.
Right.
It was a very fast moment, skidding along the highway,
right,
sideways, in a death trap of an automobile.
right. And so I think it's, I think we potentially burn through a lot of our chemistry during those moments, and I think it takes a lot of energy, especially during the high stress moments like that.
Yeah.
Right, it's an extremely high stress consciousness. It's a high awareness, but under an extremely stressful situation where you have to be in a flow state to survive, where your brain is looking for, if people say that life flashes before their eyes, because the brain is searching for reference points for survival mechanism. And so I think it takes a lot of chemistry to make that happen.
Sure,
and so to be in that state all the time I think would destroy you.
Oh, I don't.
So which is why I think it ebbs and flows.
I don't think so.
No?
John. I don't think of it like that. See, you're thinking in terms of a crisis.
Right.
The crisis. No. The point that Krishnamurti and the Zen proponents would be trying to make is that you should try to be awake all the time.
Right.
Like now, I'm looking through the window and I see the lovely colored leaves of the trees changing color on October the 10th, 2018. If I can be awake to that, at least to some strong approximation of the same awakeness that I experienced back in 1961, sliding across the highway in a death trap, can I be awake to that? It's possible, but it requires a strong sensitivity, if I can use a contradictory term, to be sensitive and to be focused and to, for a moment, to pay attention, to really be attentive. For a moment, you can discard all your troubles. Think of all your troubles when you die.
Mm.
Oh, do I have to take them with me?
Mm.
I bet a lot of us do.
Mm.
But wouldn't it be good to be able to just say, okay, done.
Right.
And to go to be what you really are, which is, I keep claiming it, that you're just a pure consciousness.
The same as if you fall
But you're
into
not
sleep.
separated from the world.
Right.
That's how people think. You're not a ghost floating above the ground.
That's an idealization.
Right. That's the mind-body dualism.
Mm.
It's the self-deceit.
Mm.
We do that. We project that, and thus we turn our spiritual entities into individuals a lot like us. Only they float.
So in closing, be here now.
And my client, just talk to that one. Maybe it helps. It's called prayer. Talk to it. He says, well, I have to drink whiskey first. There you can end it now.